Good evening. My name is Daniel, and I'm running for Woodstock Town Council. We are in a race, but not so much a race against or among those of us up here on stage, although there is, of course, that too. We're in a race against time. Economic pressures, demographic shifts, environmental threats, the rising cost of living, of doing business, of maintaining our infrastructure. All of these are changing Woodstock faster than the town has been able to keep up with. For years, needed improvements were deferred, delayed, or ignored. The current administration has been playing catch up, and they've done it well, but there's still a lot more to do. Whomever fills this seat will be asked again and again to see threats before they arrive and to head them off, to protect our water and our land, to help businesses that thrive in summer and struggle in winter, to build affordable housing, and to keep Woodstock sustainable, welcoming, and safe. I've spent my career doing exactly this sort of work, raising tens of millions of dollars for capital projects and running major nonprofit institutions. As deputy supervisor, I completed the town's first ever multi-year financial analysis. I also presented a comprehensive arts plan for the town and began the process of modernizing our aging payroll system. I've also written 2 grant proposals recently for the town, including a $65,000 county request to put a new cardiac defibrillator and monitor on our fire district's rescue vehicle because the number of EMS calls continues to rise.
That's the time, sir. I'm sorry.
Understood.
Okay, next, you're up, Mr. Nagel.
So I'm back here again, thinking I would never run for politics the last time. I'm back again. I'm a local person, grew up in West Hurley, came to Woodstock to work as a young boy when I was 12 years old. I feel I'm the boots on the ground candidate. Worked in the trades my whole life, and I think my qualifications are unique to a town board in the sense that I understand the infrastructure that the town has and the buildings and the grounds and the needs for maintenance and everything. But I've also been greatly involved in the 10 Church Road situation, as many of you may know. And I'd like to consider that as an example of my diligence in getting a good result for our community. I've spent over 3 years working on 10 Church Road. I'm paying attention to other things, but that situation up there has been so time consuming, it's just unimaginable. The town of Woodstock waged a legal defense against Pam and Frank Amy. It got settled. And Anula, our supervisor, was kind enough to give me credit in one of the recent town board meetings that I was one of the people, of many people, that kept that situation alive. And what has happened now is the town board just passed a very extensive resolution to reopen the door to 10 Church Road. Going forward, I'm involved in the water. I'm managing on the management team of the DWSP2, and I've been providing information to the Woodstock Environmental Commission. And they deserve a lot of credit because they really got the ball rolling on reopening the situation at 10 Church Road.
Thank you. Okay, we're going to have the first question, and it's going to go to you, Mr. Nagel. Left, right, left, right. What inspired you to seek this office, and is there any specific event that motivated you to enter the race?
So being a lifelong resident of the area and a resident of Woodstock since I was about 20 years old, and running a business of various kinds my entire life, as well as working in the nonprofit world at Birdcliff, the Woodstock Birdcliff Guild, I feel very fortunate that this community has been very good to me. I've worked hard, I've received a lot of respect. When I'm in trouble, I know who to call, the people aren't far away, and I think it's my turn to give something back. I never really had a passion for my excavation business. I experienced some health problems in 2023 and had to downscale that business, and that coincided with the 10 Church Road situation. And I've got a passion for that kind of work that really exercises my brain a lot more than cracking rocks and pushing dirt. I enjoy giving back, and I feel like I'm really just catching my second wind in my life. And I really want to give something back to the community and leave a legacy and be known for some real positive things.
Mr. Gallant?
So I never originally saw myself as getting into politics. I had the opportunity to work with Anula, our fantastic new and current supervisor, on her campaign, on her transition team, and then during her first few months in office to assist as deputy supervisor. And in those roles, I saw and was very surprised by how much deferred work, infrastructure improvements, capital projects the town needed and faces, because even though there has been a sizable surplus, that surplus has come at the expense of vitally needed and in fact approved improvements and overhauls to highways, to water and sewer, to all sorts of infrastructure elements. I ran the first ever multi-year financial analysis that this town has ever had, which was surprising in and of itself that there hadn't been a prior effort by a supervisor or the council to compare budgets and actual expenses and revenues. And I knew from doing that work that some of the experience and skills I had accrued over the years as a project manager, as a consultant, and as a nonprofit director managing tens of millions of dollars in budgets could come into play in helping to facilitate some of that work. And in general, I just feel that Woodstock is at an incredibly pivotal moment because the cost of living here is unsustainable for the artists, the families, the small businesses, the business owners who have called this town home for generations. And so I'm running because I think the board needs an additional member who can see and integrate the finances, the infrastructure, housing concerns, environmental sustainability, and support for artists, arts organizations, and small businesses.
Thank you. So Mr. Gallant is going to be back to you. Okay. In a general sense, what do you see as key issues for the town? And briefly, and I underscore briefly because of the time constraint, how you would address them as a town council member? What would you prioritize?
Affordability is paramount to me among the issues faced by Woodstock at this moment. A vast majority of those born here, raised here, and people who want to be able to work and live comfortably in this town are simply being priced out, in many cases at the expense of vacation rentals, short-term rentals, and tourism. At the same time, small businesses, arts organizations, and our tax base, we need tourism, we need visitors, and we need to be able to remain a viable location for those who want to visit as well as those who want to live here. So sustainability of business interests, small businesses, small arts organizations, affordability for long-term year-round residents. And one of the topics that I really do think that Marcel has also done a fantastic job on is environmental sustainability. Sometimes these topics come together, as with the Xena Highwoods development, which I believe is a complete travesty on multiple fronts, and in many ways both an insult and a detriment to those of us in Woodstock. It has tremendous environmental, it threatens the watershed, it threatens multiple endangered species, it threatens a forested area that should remain undeveloped, and it puts enormous stress on Woodstock's EMS services, which already are often stretched to the limit. So I believe that pushing back against that development and other luxury developments that our town simply doesn't need, while at the same time finding a way to plan for, budget for, and sustainably create affordable housing is hugely important.
Thank you. Mr. Nagele.
So definitely affordability is top of the wish list, if you want to call it a wish list. How do we achieve that? I think that involves a lot of accountability. How we spend our tax revenues so that we're not burdening the struggling people with added taxes that they pay through owning their property if they're fortunate enough to own it, or through the rentals that they have. The environment certainly is a second priority, because let's face it, if it's in the water, the contaminants, what are we going to do if our environment falls apart or is damaged beyond repair? The environment is a big deal. I'm passionate about that, but affordability is the other thing. I feel we have a responsibility to do something for affordable housing, and I believe affordable housing is actually the hardest hurdle for this community to overcome, due to the costs of building it and maintaining it and making it sustainable. You know, when a 2x4 costs $8, think about the cost to build an affordable unit. And the location in Woodstock for that is really difficult. I realize people are working on a location for it, but I've got some reservations about some of the sites that are picked for obvious reasons, because if we're taking up parking spaces and the business community doesn't have parking for the customers to come, how are they going to be able to sustain their businesses? It's a very complicated issue. It's going to take a lot of work, but affordability and affordable housing are definitely the two most difficult issues to solve in our community.
Thank you. You're back up. Okay, here we go. What specific skills, experiences, qualities make you qualified to be on the town council? And how would you apply your skills to solve the problem the town faces that you just discussed?
So the skills that I bring that I feel are mostly unique for a town board member are the fact that I've worked in the trades my entire life. I understand property management, and the town of Woodstock, we've got vast real estate that has to be maintained and managed. Through my excavation business, I'm very familiar with a lot of infrastructure that the town maintains and what it involves to repair it and replace it. I'm aware of situations in our buildings that need to be remedied, like at the highway department. You know, there's just things that have been on the docket to be repaired and remedied there for a long time, and it's amazing to me that an 18 or 19-year-old building probably needs $400,000 worth of work, and we're running behind on all of this stuff. It's a difficult thing to get our hands around, and I see multiple key components that really need a lot of attention, and it's going to take a lot of money to get it straightened out. But all of those things are where my skills fall into place, and I think that's really unique as a town board member. I can fill a void that I feel is really necessary when it gets down to the infrastructure and management of our properties and the maintenance of it.
Thank you. Mr. Gallant?
Yes, thank you. One of the hugest areas that I think Woodstock would benefit from, and I do commend Anula and the current council on making some strides in this area after years in which it was neglected, is partnerships with state and county officials and funding entities. There is so much grant money available at the state level. It's not easy to get, but it is there. Our state assembly, our state senate, our elected officials have access to funds that Woodstock would benefit from and have shown willingness to partner with Woodstock on pursuing those funds. It requires dedication and experience. Now, I have 20 years experience raising raising public funds for capital projects, overseeing those projects, and working with a combination of public and private funders to bring about large-scale capital projects, as well as the programs and operations that then use those renovated or newly constructed facilities. Woodstock is long overdue for improvements to significant parts of its infrastructure. Some of that work is moving forward. I also have years of work creating and working in public-private partnerships to plan for future renovations and investments in programming. And I have a lot of experience working with arts institutions and with individual artists, many of whom make Woodstock the fantastic community that it is, but many of whom have been struggling for years. We are a town that is known for our art scene. Our coat of arms up on the wall demonstrates how key arts practices are to our identity. We need, as a town, to do a better job of embracing, supporting, championing, centering, and raising money to support our artists and to give them a voice, and I have experience doing all of that. Thank you.
I'd like to do a little follow-up with both of you. Both of you have spoken, you gave a little more into how you would fund things, but both of you have talked about how expensive things are, and also some, I don't want to call it neglect, but there are certain things that have not been kept up. So how do you manage the issue of not burdening the taxpayer and investing in the infrastructure that's been neglected? Maybe Mr. Nagel, could you go first?
Well, some of this is, sometimes it just has to be painful, but we'll go back to the last election where we were talking about grants writers to raise funds to take care of and fulfill the financial needs of the community. And maybe there's some funding available for a lot of these infrastructure upgrades, and we need to chase that. The upgrades that are necessary are substantial, and we don't want to push that onto the taxpayer directly, but we do have a need to really pick a lot of our systems and infrastructure up out of the ground and get it back online.
So as someone who has been a grant writer for years and has raised tens of millions of dollars in that regard, I can certainly tell you that there are a wide number of grants at the county and state and private level that we would be eligible for, many of which are relevant to our sustainability efforts, to our efforts to improve our roads, our water, our sewers, to our efforts to better support our small businesses and our arts organizations. And part of that work is writing the grant, and part of it is advocating to our elected officials. Thank you.
Back to you, Mr. Gallant. Next question. What are the roles and responsibilities of the town council member? And I'm going to ask you specifically, what distinguishes the supervisor's role from the council member, and what can the council do that the supervisor cannot?
Absolutely. A supervisor, and I think Anula is doing a fantastic job of this, despite the fact that it is tremendously intense, is responsible for day-to-day as well as long-term strategic oversight of town staff, town resources, management of the budget, and pushing forward larger initiatives while also being cognizant of the progress of the smaller day-to-day projects that the council has approved. Council members, and my experience working on nonprofit boards for the past 20 years comes into play in this area. Council members are responsible for oversight, for assuring that the approved budget is in fact complied with, for being on the ground in community organizations and community events to gauge the temperature of and understand the concerns and the needs of community members. Yes, the supervisor does that as well, and yes, our supervisor is doing a great job of being immersed in the community, but when someone is so involved with the day-to-day administrative business of running a town, it also means that that person's perspective is going to be much more focused on town work, and council members have the ability to be both ambassadors for the supervisor's work, but also to be a counterbalance at times. I have a lot of experience as a nonprofit board member, being both a dissenting voice and a supportive voice, and I think that cognitive dissonance is absolutely vital to the role, being willing to be generally supportive, but also to call out those areas where either a council person or the townspeople they represent may differ with the town administration on some topics. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Nagel.
So Dan basically hit the ball out of the park on that one. In short, the town supervisor is responsible for the day-to-day operations, and the council members are just simply not responsible for the day-to-day operations. As a council member, I believe that there are times where you're going to absolutely align with the supervisor on any position and you're going to be supportive. There's going to be other times, I believe, where a council member's position is going to not be in alignment with the supervisor, and I think it's a responsibility of every individual council member to speak up, even when they're going to go against the grain of the supervisor. I've been involved in the last 3 years, and not as a council member, but as a member of the community, and I have challenged the authorities in this town consistently, factually, and I've proven my case every single time. And that ultimately is the responsibility of a council member, to do your homework, know what you're talking about, listen to your constituents, and stand up and be heard for the betterment of the community. I think it's really that simple, and it's a difficult task to fulfill, but that is what it's about. I listen to the community, and I will bring what the community wants to the table, and I will stand up and be heard when it needs to be a situation that needs to be heard.
Okay, thank you. This is the last question before your final statement. So the last question we have here is, much of the council, current council, is composed of newly elected officials. How do you get along with the new team? And what relational skills can you bring to ensure the council runs smoothly? Mr. Nagele.
So the existing town board council, it does have some new members. But we do have some holdovers. Anula was a town board member, she's now the supervisor. Laura Rickey was a town board member, she's still on the town board. And Reggie Earls is a returning town board member. How do I get along with them? I would like to say that I will work diligently to get along with everybody, but I offer a lot of context when I communicate, and I know it's problematic for some people. And I do that for a variety of reasons, because sometimes I get asked a question by a council member. I need to provide the context so that they understand the answer to the solution. Sometimes I've been greeted by a response that was unfavorable to me, because my context is so thorough, because I want anybody I'm communicating with to not be able to say, well, I didn't understand that. And that's what I plan to do: communicate thoroughly, add a lot of context so other council members could make informed decisions, and be heard. And one of the biggest complaints that I've had over the last number of years is we have town board meetings where we're in and out the door in 20 minutes. I want more of the discussion about the town's affairs to take place at the table. And if I receive a consultant's report that says the water's contaminated, I'm bringing it to the town board table. Transparency, 100%. Accountability, 100%. And I'm going to do it in a fair and calm manner.
Thank you. Mr. Gallant.
Thank you. And I want to commend Marcel. I think that the ways that he has brought the 10 Church Road and related topics to the public eye has really been useful and beneficial, and it has had an impact, no question, on how the board has moved forward. So I get along very well with Anula, with Lily, Laura, Lori, and Reggie. I also think from 20 years of serving on nonprofit boards and continuing to serve on several, that it is both possible and vital to be, when possible, to have an amicable harmony among committee members while also being willing to disagree, and to have those disagreements be civil, be based in the facts, and not be based in emotion, but rather tied into actual constituent needs, available data, and the well-being of the town. And as We have seen in the past, and we see with current issues, there will be any number of times when citizens and groups of citizens will, despite having compatible goals for the town, have very different opinions about execution and strategy. And it really is the responsibility of every council member to be willing not only to hew to the argument they came into a meeting with, but to consider alternate possibilities, to consider counter arguments, and to be willing to weigh a path forward that may differ with their instincts. Evidence and awareness of the well-being of the town are paramount for any governing entity. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, now we've come to the conclusion where you will give your 2-minute concluding statements. And since Mr. Gallant began, we're going to begin with you, Mr. Nagele, for your 2-minute final wrap-up.
Oh, the closing statement. I'm going to go back to my opening statement and just say that this community has treated me very well throughout my life. And I don't really have any enemies in this community, and I've worked really hard, and I've found this new passion to serve the community. I promise everybody I will do it in a calm, respectful manner. When I'm going to challenge authority, I'm going to do it factually. I'm going to be open. I'm going to be transparent. I'm going to bring the documents to the table. I think, when we look back at the last number of years, one of the problems that was missing was certainly transparency. I know that firsthand from on the outside. There were instances where I would request information because I'm the mad foiler. But let me tell you, using that law to gain information is a really important thing to utilize. And there were instances in the past where it wasn't transparent, and there were violations of the law. And if somebody's in trouble in this community, say another shady dump, and they're not getting the information from the government that they need, I will be an advocate for them again, just as I was for the Amy's. If an employee is being harassed in the workplace and they need somebody to stand up with them and guide them through the process, I will do that. And I have a zero tolerance for poor behavior in the workplace. And I will always be open to any member of this community and any employee that works for our government and anybody that's visiting the town. I will be here to serve this community through and through, and it will be my mission to get a good result for the community.
Thank you. Mr. Gallant.
So thank you all for being here. Thank you, Christine, for doing such a fantastic job as moderator, and thank you to the Woodstock Democratic Committee for hosting. You've heard us talk tonight about governance, about affordability, about infrastructure. What ties all of the issues together that we've been discussing so far are the same set of questions. Will a decision that the town government makes actually protect our air and our water? Will it make the lives of Woodstock residents easier? Will it put more money in your pocket, or at least make it more sustainable for you to cover your expenses? These sort of practical tests are what I will apply to any vote that comes before the council if I'm elected. And I'm not coming to this work from a theoretical place. I've raised tens of millions of dollars for communities and overseen budgets in the tens of millions. I know how to write the grant, to manage the project, to account for the money, and to ensure good governance. A council member's job is stewardship, oversight, guidance, and showing up ready to work. And after 20 years on nonprofit boards and a career in this sort of work, I'm ready to do that from day one in this role while staying immersed in our community. There's a proverb that I often think about, and that's one of the reasons that I went into the nonprofit sector. A society grows great when people plant trees whose shade they know that they will never sit in. And that's why I do this work in nonprofits, and that's why I aim to be and hope to have your vote as a council member. The financial analysis, infrastructure, housing, the grants, most of this is, in a metaphorical sense, the process of planting trees for the Woodstock that comes after us. We owe that to the people who built this town and the ones who will inherit it from us. Thank you.
Thank you. This concludes this section, and I would like us to give a round of applause to the folks who have really put themselves